Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining us. We're joined by Juan Gonzalez Mendia of Sud America Coaching. And there we are again. Technical issues as usual. Chris P here. Core value of the month is empathy. Juan, thanks for joining us. You've been on before several times. Tell us a little bit about you and your journey, and then also a little bit about the space you've been working in recently.
Hi, Chris. Thank you so much for having me back. I can't believe you haven't realized yet, but you're still inviting me back. But anyway, here I am sitting in my office in England, Stamford, where I've been for the last 3 years now. Worked around a couple of professional rugby environments before. A club here in the Midlands, a place in the Premiership, and then before that, a club from the Northeast that also used to play in the Premiership, now it's in the Championship. And I'm nowadays involved with another club that plays in the Premiership as well. And I'm trying to get them to understand the importance of going global. So I'm what's the official title? Overseas partnerships management or something like that. It's got a fancy title that I never remember. Before that, worked in independent schools, so private schools basically. Again, around sporting schools, so well renowned for their sporting disciplines. Again, around rugby union mostly. And I've got a BA in sports science. I've done my master's in education. And I'm currently going through a PhD as well, so which is it's very early days. I had a bit of a setback, injuring my Achilles last summer, and that put most things on standby, and that was one of them. So yeah, here we are with the mighty Chris P.
Yeah, so thanks, Juan. Tell us a little your PhD. What's your PhD going to be in?
It's around a professional PhD, so slightly different to a research one. There is some research involved with it. However, I'm trying to develop a guide, pocket guide for coaches around relationships. It's going to have some chapters around relationships with your athletes, relationships with your co-coaches, with people that take decisions in the organizations. With officials visiting the club, which I think is a crucial one. And yeah, regardless of their relationship or if they still are in this world or not, every athlete has parents. So I think the coach should have a relationship with parents as well. So it's a very practical, hopefully it'll be a very practical resource where people can actually have it in their pockets and they can reach out if they're about to have a difficult conversation with a parent, or if they want to make the visiting staff and players go through the best possible experience in their club in terms of visiting elsewhere. And yeah, hopefully it'll be giving people practical advice around those relationships. The research around it is going to be related to the impact that guy is going to have. So the idea is to try to spread it out to as many coaches and different environments as possible, from what we normally call performance or elite within sports to all the way to grassroots and everything in the middle.
Brilliant. I love that. So obviously you're looking at gaining your PhD and working in that space. And I know you just got back from Croatia, right? Doing a little bit of coach development, coach ed. What were some of the things that you were working on in Croatia? If you want to share some of the stuff that you worked with their coaches and.
Yeah, so it was a fantastic weekend. I was just actually writing a bit of a blog about it on the website. So going through some photos and some videos and. Yeah, just trying to spread the word about the sports, really. The city of Zagreb, who was the main sponsor, let's call it, behind it, got in touch through a couple of people in a rugby club that I know, got us out there, got us this really nice room, really nice food on the Friday, We spent a day just exchanging with coaches. Interestingly enough, that is the same building where the Olympic Committee has their offices in terms of Sudbury, and then they got other places in the country as well. And through the day, we had different coaches from other sports popping in as well. So the theme of the weekend was how to create the best experience in terms of the environment that all the people were going to be exposed, not just the children or the players, but the coaches and the coach developers and the parents and the volunteers and anyone that would come to that environment throughout that week, and how can we make them feel the best they can possibly feel. So we discussed a number of things around how we could create that. We talked a little bit about how a human being learns, and we sort of discussed the learning process and the feedback processes. We also had a look at how the weekend was going to look, and we did some planning around that. The plan came from the coaches that were going to be doing the coaching. There were about 70, 80 kids there, so it was going to be unrealistic that I was going to be able to coach them all at the same time. So, and the idea for the coaches to try to develop is obviously to develop as they're coaching, not as they're sitting on a room listening to somebody tell them what to do. So a very different approach to, I would say, the majority of the experiences they've had in the past. So a big challenge for me as well to try to sort of turn down some barriers and get people to open up, which I think they were very open, to be honest, and they were keen. And again, never been there before, so just nice to get to meet them. We were working with them since September, so that was the first live intervention we've done. And I think the feedback has been very good. Obviously, lots of things that we're going to try to improve for next time. And we got 2 more interventions this year, and then hopefully going back in 2021. That is if the world doesn't come to an end very soon. But anyway.
Yeah, we said we weren't going to mention that, but let's keep going. So if we're talking about the learning environments and how to get the best experience for everybody involved, coach, developer, coach, player, participant, parents, what in all your travels, in all of your experiences, what has been that common thread, right? I know relationships would be one, obviously. What have been some of the common threads that you found, regardless of sport, regardless of country, in your thoughts, what have been the common threads for these environments and shaping that experience?
Obviously, the majority of coaches coaching have been players before and have practiced that sport before, regardless of what sport it is. That tends to be what's sort of the norm. I think they've been coaching in a way that they know, or they are very suspicious that it wouldn't work with children nowadays. So I think that's the biggest barrier. Now I hear a lot, or children don't hear, or children are not having success, or children have gone flat, or millennials, and all these terms. Well, there's lots of children having lots of success in lots of things. And those are the things, they have lots of participation, and they try to design the environment around their needs. And they have lots of input in terms of how that environment looks as well. So if you look at, let's call them successful learning environments in terms of education, if you look at places like Finland nowadays, interactive classrooms, people coming in and out, there's no bells in terms of when they stop learning and when they go back to learning. There's playtime in terms of when they need to go and have a play. There's everything around project learning, there's everything about collaboration, participation, everything to do with beginning to understand who you are and why you do the things you do in terms of self-awareness, and then passing it on to other people. So again, those places are having lots of success, and I think, going back to the original question, that would be the first big thing I come across in terms of we've done things this way for a number of years. Well, why are we going to change it if we've been having success? Well, A, what do we call success? B, how do you know you're having it? And at the end of the day, you just told me children are very different. So, well, why are we going to continue to do what we always done? And again, it's I think it's a lack of information at times. I think it's a lack of awareness of what kids are into it and what they want to do. And yeah, and there is a little bit of stubbornness in there as well, I would have thought. So yeah, that's probably the biggest thing. I mean, that's a common thing I see on it.
Yeah. So, you know, just to unpick a few of those things, right? You said a lot of coaches tend to be former players, so they have a knowledge of the sport. They've coached, they've been coached in a particular way, so they want to coach in a particular way, and they don't want to get into, well, you know, it's proven, the science and the research shows if we do X, then the benefits are Y and Z. You know, we want to stick with, no, we want to go with ABC because we've always done it that way. So for example, let's take an under 6, so a 6-year-old. How old is Kata now? She's 4?
My daughter is 3 now, yeah.
3, yeah. So let's take an under 6, for example, and grassroots coach, and they believe that this is the process is linear, and kids, by dribbling through cones, can improve their dribbling on a short-term basis. For example, take any sport you want, whether it's field hockey, football, or basketball, dribbling through cones, and kids wait in lines. This is an environment that is going to improve their dribbling quicker. How do we dispel those myths and give children a choice, right? Because you use the word choice and have the you know, what do successful learning and interactive environments look like. Let's talk about that and unpick that and how we move people from here to here.
Well, it depends, because if they are preparing for the World Championship of dribbling cones, I think that is what they should be doing, really. And that's a quote from the grand Ed Colan there, the Corkman. Yeah, anyway.
Dr. Ed, yeah.
That is the vision a lot of people have about coaching, and we know that, and the people that are probably watching this know that as well. And yeah, I mean, we've got to start talking about how people learn. We've got to explore that. We got to be able to tell people why we're doing what we're doing. And if the answer is, well, we've always done it this way, well, there must be. There's got to be some more evidence there. We've got to be able to have different conversations. A lot of people will get the volunteer sort of shield from the latest Braveheart version out and go, oh, we are volunteers. Well, yeah, you're a volunteer, but you've got a young mind in front of you, and I think you might need some support around this and this. So that's a conversation I come across a lot. Now, when we discuss learning, I mean, I will encourage people to follow great minds around learning, such as Richard Cheatham, MBE. I call him Dr. Learning. Another Dr. Learning could be Ed Colan as well. So they understand learning, and they understand how the human being will transfer knowledge to learning very well. I mean, the big thing for me a few years ago when I started talking about transfer, so how do we transfer from practice to the game? So how do we know kids are actually learning? And it's still a question I sort of wrestle with in daily basis. How do we know we're going to transfer this? I think there's lots of tools that we could be using to try to emphasize transition or transfer of learning. One of them is the one you just mentioned, which is choice. I think giving the choice to play with different balls, or giving the choice of some rules or some areas, or opening the transfer market halfway through a game, and if you want to buy any players. I mean, I think there's loads of coaching tools out there that could resemble choice and could generate behaviors around our learning. And then, I mean, if we were in a room with 100 people right now, if all of them were coaches, and we would ask the question of who thinks decision making is important, every single person in that room will raise their hand. Now, if they think decision making is important, but their practices don't have decision making or have a very small amount of decisions being made, because there are some decisions being made around when you're running around cones. When do you start, when you don't start, what part of your food you're using. I'm struggling to find some more. Where you're going to keep your eyes, let's say. You're going to look up, you're going to look at the ball. What you're going to do in the queue when you're waiting, how many people are you going to push, how many ears you're going to pick, and whatever. So those sorts of things are decisions. But I think in a game context, in a play context, call it a fixture and match, there will be loads more. So there, I mean, that makes me think. I mean, if our training session doesn't look like the game, then if the amount of choices is very limited, then I think we'll be in a bit of trouble, because it won't resemble what's going to happen on a Saturday or a Sunday or whenever the fixture is.
Yeah, and in your opinion, Juan, and in your experience, what is the best way for transfer to take place, where we can check for understanding and actually see that learning's taken place? So from Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday of training to fixture day, what in your opinion and your experience has been the best way for transfer?
I think there's little transfer in drills. I'm not saying there's no learning at all. I'm saying there's little transfer, because again, it doesn't look like the game. I think there's little transfer in unopposed stuff. So I've never seen a soccer game without opposition. So I think there won't be a lot of transfer there. Again, I'm not saying there's no learning. I don't want to be absolute, but I think that there could be scenarios such as games, small-sided games. There could be scenarios around exploring with different rules within a game. People call them condition games. There could be a lot more transfer in what people tend to call nonlinear approaches. Lots of transfer around everything to do with getting children to develop their own game in terms of what they can notice from the game. So constraints-led approach would be another term, or another approach. I think those things will have loads of transfer. They will take longer. They will take a lot longer in terms of the eyes of the adults to see, well, this is what's happening. This is how training should look. There is learning here because we can go around the cones. We could go around the cones in 10 seconds last week. Now we can go around the cones in 8 seconds. Well, yes, I'm gonna probably give in and say yes. It's 2 seconds less for the World Championships of dribbling or going around the cones.
Dribbling through cones.
Yeah. But again, if we look at a game of football, then it looks very different. So again, I think we need to look at the game. We need to look at our practices. We need to be intentional around our practices. We need to be intentional at things like co-coaching with other coaches. We need to be intentional at how we are supporting players and how we are stretching players, and again, how we creating the best possible experience for everyone there. Which I know sounds repetitive, but it should be in the back of every single coach, I think.
So with giving a little bit of repetition, because we know that repetition builds muscle memory, right? Let's give us your top 3 things for the environment, for the training environment from the player perspective, top 3 things, and then top 3 things from a coaching perspective. And you've touched already on some of them, right? Planning, intentional, you know what I mean, session design. So in terms of environment, I will start with a loving and caring environment. That would be my first one. There is a lot of
unpleasantness, if that's a word. I don't want to use the word hate, but there is a lot of that at the moment. So I think people talk about sports as being a tribe. So if you want to be part of one of the biggest tribes in the world, and you go into the tribe, then you feel part of the tribe, which is fantastic. And then somebody makes you feel not very well in that tribe. Well, you probably don't want to be part of it anymore. So I would probably start from there.
Which again goes back to relationships, loving, caring,
100%.
relationships, knowing who's in front of you. Yeah.
100%. So know the person in front of you. Get to know them if you think you know them. Get to know them even more, and get to care for them, and make decisions around what's the best. How does this look the best, and then let's make decisions around how we get to that. I talk a lot about intention as well. So having intention. So making sure we have an intention about what we're doing with a purpose. And obviously it goes hand in hand with what we were saying before in terms of getting to know people, that people knowing what are your intentions or where you're trying to take that team of that group of people or whatever that is, and making sure that they're on board. So we said we talked about love, we talked about intention, and yeah, I think I'll leave it in those top two. I mean, there could be quite a few more around that. If we take that to coaching, I would probably start with making it look like the game. So making sure it looks like what's going to happen on Saturday. I would always talk about the principles of the game, whatever the sport is. So having your principles of the game, what content do we need to make those principles of the game look, I mean, for practice to look like the actual game. And then I'm thinking about how I would plan a session to make it the best possible session. I would have a column around the principle of the game, a column around the content, a column around feedback and how am I going to do feedback, and I'd probably have a column around coaching and who's doing what and when and stuff like that. But not just looking at attack and defense, or just looking at midfielders and goalkeeper, or looking at what happens in the transition. I would be really interested about the intentionality of those coaches that are coaching. Who's going to stretch people? Who's going to pause the game? Who's going to have some one-on-ones? Who's going to have some discussions with their feedback groups, because we've established feedback groups at the beginning of the season. And for that coach, he knows that 5 children really well, and they all got their individual development plan, even if it's not a 35 pages long plan. It's in both of their heads, so the child and the coach, and that child is being constantly stretched, constantly challenged. We're touching base around learning all the time and how people want to learn. I've stolen something from Richard Cheatham, MBE. I don't want to forget the MBE. Chich talks about how people want to learn. So I watch him speak a few times, and I've been sitting down in some of his lectures at Winchester University, and he would always ask people, "How do you want to learn today?" And guess what? Nobody ever answers. Nobody ever goes, "Oh, I want to learn this way." So I think having children in those environments, being able to tell you how they want to learn, how often you want you to post the game, how rare is for a child to say, "I want to get together in a group of 25 people and talk to all of them now," which is what huddles look like. Okay, so being able to have children challenging your thinking, in the right way of challenging, not just challenge for the sake of challenge here, with the objective of trying to get better, for everybody there to try to get better. I think that's really cool, that's really important, and when you get to something like that, I think it tells you a lot about the coaches, about the environment they're trying to create. It's got to be a loving and caring and intentional environment without a doubt. Because if it wasn't like that, they wouldn't have got to the point where someone said on Sunday in Croatia, I thought we were only going to play for 3 minutes regardless. So coach shouted out, "Oh, let's do one more." So this kid stopped the game and went, "I thought we were going to play for 3 minutes regardless." Well, I think that's really intentional. And I think that's putting a coach in a vulnerable situation where the coach is learning, the kids are learning, and the kids understood that they weren't going to be able to do that on Sunday. They wouldn't be able to go to the referee and say, "Oh, can we have one more because they just scored and we want to score." So getting to those points, I think it's going to be a loving, intentional environment where feedback, learning, and everything to do with how people want to do those things are there, and people are able to challenge it and to bring it up.
Yeah, I think you hit on quite a few there. It's interesting, right? The feedback and the learning, and I think it was Rusty that might have said, feedback is what the players give us, not what we give them. You know what I mean? And Cheats has been brilliant with us as well. We have an ongoing WhatsApp conversation and Facebook, and he's really looking at that learning. What they're looking at now in schools, in some schools where my wife works, for example, they have a whiteboard and they put on the board, what do you know? What do you want to know? What did you learn? Right. So that's what they're doing on the whiteboards and the use of whiteboards and stuff like that.
I will use whiteboard a lot in my sessions. So for the coaches watching and listening to this, I will always have a whiteboard with me. There will be lots of kids that would like to see things written down and add things, and a good way of involving people that perhaps are not being able to be part of the session in terms of running around, but they can be part of the session in many other ways instead of just going home or playing on their phones or texting or whatever. So I would always have whiteboards around, and I think it's a great resource. I like that. I like those 3 questions. That's cool. I'm going to use that.
Yeah, I like the fact that you have a whiteboard, and if you do have somebody injured, you have an opportunity for them to scribe or picture, and what are they noticing, what are you noticing, and that way we're giving ownership to the children, right, as opposed to always the coaches. And when we step in, I think a lot of coaching done is around fixing stuff as opposed to stuff. Did you guys see the run that Brody just made? That was brilliant. That's exactly what we want. Brody, tell us about, you know what I mean? I think a lot of that coaching. I think just on top of that is to go on, what you're saying about loving and caring. I think it's the old Maya Angelou quote, right? People, they don't know, they'll remember how you made them feel, but they'll know how you care. And I've got the quote jumbled, but you know where I'm going with that, right? So just that relationship piece. So the quicker you get your pocket guide out, Juan, and finish that PhD, the better it is. So people can use that. Pardon?
I'll get it done.
Yeah, you have to, right? Part of your PhD. You've got a hello, it's not a question, and we will start taking questions. Got a hello one from Jose. Let me tell you the rest. We've got some international guests on from Jose Alonso Saavedra.
Okay.
So I don't really know Jose, but he's saying hello.
Is it Jose or is it Juan?
In Spanish now. Let's just say hello to Jose, sorry. He said it was right. I got his name right. I didn't butcher the pronunciation, but he sends you big love. So thanks for joining us, by the way, Jose. So just while we're in the space, right? Obviously, how long have you been doing this one? What you've been doing, like with Sud America Coaching? Obviously, we met last year.
Been running for just over 2 years now, I think. Yeah. Just 2 years.
But you've been in this coaching space for a long time, working with the schools and coach development and teaching. What is it, right, over the last 2 years that you've got really excited about? What is it that excited you in the last couple of years? And we may have already touched upon it, but what things are you noticing?
I was coming out of a Prem club, and I thought I saw it come in, and then I basically had to go and do something. It was either try to get another job or I had this thing going. It's been going for some time, and it was one of those things. I still remember I was at a rugby club in Argentina. We just finished like a workshop. I think it looked like a workshop. Someone said, "Oh, how much do we own you?" kind of thing. And I was like, "Well, I don't know. We're just gonna have a barbecue and we'll be okay." But then I sort of realized I could turn it into a business, and it was one of them that. So I want to coach as many people as I can. Yeah. So at the time when it all started, I wanted to go and coach and have as much interventions with as much people as possible. But halfway through the process, I sort of realized, well, if I don't tell, or if we don't try to influence the people that are in charge of the environments, then it's going to be really hard, because players can have a lot of information, but if they're not allowed, let's say, to go and play the way they want to play, or go and practice the way they want to practice, then because they're being restricted by some beliefs and some sort of resilient knowledge that is out there, then obviously they won't be able to move forward as coaches. So I sort of made this switch and went on to the people that were responsible for that. So coaches, teachers, professors in universities, some decision makers at different organizations. So a common theme in the last year or so has been, I've been working with some organizations. The coaches are really enjoying this way of going about coaching. You can see the players are starting to understand why people want them to learn in that way. And they are becoming better players in the process of it, because they're making those decisions. And at the same time, they got more resources, such as questioning, challenging, and all these things that we mentioned before. But then the thing that's starting to reoccur is, can you come and work with our decision makers? Can you come and work with the admin side of the club? And I'm really intrigued about why. Well, the thing is, all these coaches were making these adjustments to the philosophies, and they were trying to develop that, and sort of this bug of, oh, I need to know a little bit about constraints-led approach, or I need to go and do a bit more about exploration and discovery and these things. So they are going around the internet, they are consulting other coaches, they are reading some books and things like that. And then when they're having a conversation with somebody that makes a decision in the club, the decision maker doesn't have the information they have. So it's a bit of a clash in there.
Yeah. And
so that's been a theme that's really interesting to me now. I wasn't going to include a chapter in the practical guide about them, but I think at the end of the day, if they are making decisions around the way people are going to coach, and who's getting hired, who's getting fired, and sort of coaching philosophies and all these things, then, well, they need the information. So I'm flying to Argentina and Chile next week, and half of the clubs that I'll be seeing, we got an instance with the admin, sort of decision makers, chairmen, and people like that. So I think that's been really interesting, because I like to think it as a model of sort of 360 leadership approach within the organization. So the coaches that are down here are telling the decision makers that are up here sort of the way they want to go about their coaching. And obviously, if you have a look at the full picture, then the players are hopefully telling coaches how they want to be coached, how they want to be learning, how they want to become better players, and how they want to spend their time in practice, how they want the pre-match to look, how they want halftime to look, and so on and so forth. So I think that's a nice sort of missing link in the process that I'm excited about. I'm excited to spend some time with people that, for some reason, I'm thinking they're going to be waiting for me with their arms closed or their arms crossed, just waiting for me like that, and see what this guy's going to say on a Friday afternoon. But yeah, I mean, I think it goes down to a lack of information in terms of what people have access to and how they're making their decisions. So chairs and committee groups and all these people, they cannot be experts at everything they do. I've got no doubt whatsoever they got the best intention for every single organization they work for, otherwise they wouldn't be there. 95% of them or 99% of them as volunteers. So the bottom line is they want to be there, they got the best intentions. Now, do they need a bit more information? Do they need a bit more support? They probably
do. Yeah, huge. Now, do you ever get everybody in the same room? One, do you meet with subsects? Do you go with coaches, then you go with the admin, then you go with stakeholders or CEOs, whatever? Or do you ever get them all in the same room discussing things? Or have you found that separating them, then bringing them together is better?
It's hard. I mean, 90% of the organizations I work for are amateurs, are non-profitable. Some of them are charities even. And it's hard to get all these people in the same room. There are different ways to get people at different times in 2 or 3 days that I might be working with them, and at least try to get them to sing from the same hymn sheet. That's sort of trying to relay some information around how environments could look, how people learn, and where is the world of education trying to go towards. So those will be the key messages. And how we coach in a kickoff or in a line out or in a goalkeeping scenario, things like that, they are not even top 10 of the priority list, I would have thought.
So the X's and O's are not the top 10 thing. Yeah. So we got our first question, and it comes from Deborah. And Deborah's a retired PE teacher, and she's asking, how important is the knowledge and education of child development in the success of children?
I lost the last bit there, Chris. Can you say that again?
In the success of children developing. So basically, knowing who's in front of you, which we've discussed.
Yep.
Right. So how important is that knowledge of child education, how a child learns, and child development?
Look, I think, thanks for the question, Deborah. Good to have you on board. Good that you're still here after whatever it is, 40 minutes now. Yeah, I think, look, it's definitely important. Let's put it this way, it wouldn't happen in any other sector, the lack of information. So if you work in architecture, if you're a plumber, or if you're a builder, or if you're a lawyer, then you will have quite a bit of information in terms of what you do. Now, all those 4 ladies and gents might be coaching the local club with limited access to information in terms of how people learn. Now, I think it's a responsibility, again, from the decision makers of the club or the organization to go and provide that information, especially if it's got to do with things like safeguarding, especially if it's got to do with things like long-term impact of what people are trying to do, anything to do with getting those children to anything to do with those volunteers to get to know their children better. I think it should be a responsibility of the organizations to lay out.
For example, sharing curriculum would be helpful.
There you go.
Coaches meetings, getting people in, sharing your 100%. Philosophy, hearing their philosophy, expectations, defining expectations and standards.
Oh yeah, 100%. Sorry to interrupt. Carry on.
No, carry on.
I think the majority of that people, if they're sane people, they will come to those things. They will want those resources. Nobody will be coming down on a chairman's sort of door, knocking down for information about how children learn. That's the reality of how things work. And now, if you're a mom or a dad, you're spending some time with your daughter on a Saturday morning, then obviously you've got quite a few things going on in your life. And yeah, fair enough. it won't be at the top of your priorities. Now, I think the organization needs to make it a priority. That would be my advice. I'm not quite sure if I'm answering your question, Deborah, but I think it's crucial. I think it should come from the organization, and we need to make it relevant. We need to make it, again, intentional. Perhaps if you've got your volunteers times, I don't know, 4 times in the month on a Saturday morning, perhaps you use 50 minutes of a Saturday morning to discuss a few things. Perhaps you got some sort of protocols within the organization that there are a number of things you got to tick before you go and coach, before you get on the pitch. Yeah. And I know it's gonna make volunteers' life a little bit harder, and I know some people are going to be drawn away from the process, or because I've got to spend time doing this, and I've got to go into a child safeguarding course, and I've got to spend 4 hours on a first aid course or whatever. So, but again, I think the organization needs to be intentional around how they go about it.
Yeah, and I think you hit many of the things that have been implemented for years, right? You've got to pass the safeguarding, you've got to go through the child abuse prevention, how do you spot the abuse, concussion protocols, got to attend the meeting to get the gear, to get your roster, to then, so.
Yeah, absolutely. And obviously, going back to Deborah, I think, Deborah, you're a retired PE teacher. You've been around for a few years.
She's only 22.
Changes, hopefully. And
she's retired at the age of 22. What? She retired at the age of 22. Yeah, but no, she's been around the block. She's seen it. She's seen, how children learn and the changes in teaching and, the methodology and stuff like that. So, Juan, we're coming to close to our time together. Let's talk a little bit now. We've touched upon it through a lot of the stuff we've mentioned. Let's have a little bit of a deeper dive on player-centered approaches and the advice that you could give our audience to perhaps unlock a few of those myths about player-centered approach and how we can better deliver a player-centered approach. You comfortable with that?
Yeah, happy. Give me a myth. Give me a myth to start with. Come on.
Well, the myth is the coach comes and then he puts the session together, and it's a lot of rote learning that isn't connected to what the players need, but the coach feels better because he's just seen on Saturday, well, we didn't do this. We didn't do this. So, for example, we're not rebounding. We're not rebounding very well. We'll take basketball for the example.
Media coaching. I call it media coaching. I think the best planners in terms of coaches are the coaches that plan away from their games. So they got a big picture. They got an end in mind, like GB hockey will be using nowadays, and they will see beyond the fixture. They will see beyond the position in the league. They will see beyond the knockout stages. Always aiming to what's next, kind of thing.
So away from results, not being results driven.
So to translate that into an educational environment, so you've got to see past your examinations at the end of the year. So you've got that you got people in front of you that are going to be doctors, that are going to be mechanics, that are going to be engineers, and are going to be all these things, not just the exam that covers fractions and whatever maths contents is there. I think they should be able to see beyond that. I think another myth would be around, oh, there's a ball, go and play. Now it's child center because they're doing whatever they want. Well, again, I would argue
child-centered but adult-led
environment, and I would argue that's intentional. Now, from the loving and caring point of view, well, you're not quite sure what's going on. You don't know how people are treating each other. You're just sort of part of the memorabilia there, and yeah, it's 6 o'clock. Yeah, whistle, let's go home, kind of thing. I think child-centered environment and player-centered environment is very different to that. It's got lots of intentionality around what you're trying to do, and yeah, there is an element of the coach buying his or her own time, loads of time during the session, but that doesn't mean the coach is absent from the session. That doesn't mean it's just another sort of cone on the side, another post or whatever it is.
And unless, of course, they're doing this, right?
Exactly.
Unless they're just scrolling. But being present, being engaged.
Yeah, being engaged, being there, challenging people, stretching people, having a very good idea of what feedback is going to look like in the session. I think that's a good element of player-centered approach. Having a very good idea how people like their feedback. Do they like it in the moment? Do they like it at the end? Do they like it from a teammate? Do they like it from the goalkeeper who's 40 yards behind them? Do they like it from the referee? Do they not like it at all for the next 2 hours or until the next practice? Do they like to have a look at their videos and then go and compare that with something on the internet that they've seen or whatever it is? So lots of awareness around feedback, I think, is a good element around child-centered or player-centered environments. We touch base around choice. Something that I've been using a lot is pause. So being able to pause the practice when people feel comfortable with it. I think having a break time in a session could be a very good element. So if you've got a 45-minute practice, or if you got even an hour and a half practice, having 2-3 breaks, and those are not just water breaks, they're actually breaks for some information to sink in, for the learning process to work in a different way, for children to go and do perhaps something away from that sport or that particular moment, for people to go and touch base with their parents, or to go and touch base with another teammates that are men perhaps practicing in a different practice on the pitch next door, or whatever it is. So I will have a lot of break times, not lots of break times. I will have break times,
but being intentional about that break, right, and how you use that break.
100%. I would have conversations with players and children around when they want to have their break times. What do they want to do in those break times? I will give them options around what sort of practice they want to have. Okay, so how do they want practice to look? And again, it could have an element of Saturday of what just happened. It could have an element around, you mentioned at the beginning of this conversation, what was your core value? That it was empathy. Is that right?
Yeah.
Yeah, good. My memory's not very good.
Good job. No, you did well.
If you sorry?
I said you did very well there.
There you go. Yeah. And if you're looking about empathy, well, break time could be used to talk about those things. There could be a scoring system that is made up, created by the players. So I think that's a good tool for coaches. Yeah. Go and try that. So we've been working on these things, guys. So what do you think we're working on? What's your feedback from Saturday? All right, let's work around some different ways of scoring points, different ways of losing some points. Let's work around what those points could unlock potentially, and what could happen if we go up a level, down a level, or whatever is the terminology you're using with them. And I think then bringing that to the table, to your whiteboard, or to whatever it is, that's quite a powerful tool, because they'll be coming up with things that they're noticing around the game. They will be noticing they're getting better at doing certain things. They will be noticing they're getting better at, let's say, getting the ball back if they're doing certain things. Well, how can we reward that on a scoring system? Okay. Yeah. So yeah, making it look like it's player center is not player center, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, no, I think you unpicked a lot of stuff there. So obviously, session design, voice and a choice. You mentioned leveling up, leveling down. You mentioned giving people a pause. So that goes off Amy Price's video game design, which is slightly different to gamification, but really getting into, number one, care. And the best way to show you care is actually care. Number two is being intentional. Right, being intentional in everything we do, whether it's session design. Now, player-centered design might be, you might show up with, three training plans, and you put down, and you might go to this group and go, hey, which session? You know what I mean? Knowing what their needs are and asking the players what they feel they need to work on, and then kind of not going by the seat of your pants, but just having an idea. This is where they might go, and that ties into, of course, knowing who's in front of you and stuff like that.
Yeah, I mean, they could even design the session. They could get together and go, look, this is how the session is going to look like. Have some inputs around it, and
But that's not on the spot. That would have been done, you know, a day before, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
okay, you guys, your responsibility.
Things I've done before is plan. If I've got an hour session, plan about 40 minutes of it, and then give them 20 minutes and say, look, by the when we get to minute 40, then we've got to move on to what you guys want to be practicing. And it's not a 6-7 minutes of sort of fiddling around with cones and balls and coming up. It's 40 minutes whilst the practice is developing in their heads, trying to plan the last 20 minutes, which is quite a hard exercise to go with. But I think it's a very good noticing exercise as well. So they will be picking up loads of things that are happening throughout that practice. Then by the time you get to minute 40, when boom, well, this is what we're reflecting on. Okay, let's translate that into how we're going to make that look better.
Yeah, we did something on Saturday with a group of 2009s, so 10-year-old boys. So we asked them to think about their super strength, 2 things that got them on the team. But then instead of me saying my super strengths, I had a partner. You were my partner, Juan, and I said, listen, you know, I think Juan's super strengths were Juan's ability to communicate and Juan's ability to show that he cares by actually caring. So I then chose your 2 super strengths, and then you chose mine. So instead of me talking about my super strengths, I gave it to you through a different lens of a teammate, and the boys loved it. You know, it was something a little bit different. And it's funny how when you ask 10-year-old children to do that, some of the answers that you can get. You know, it's amazing when we just give them a little chance and let them go with it.
Absolutely. I remember doing again, big whiteboard side of the page. I've never met a group of girls before. It was a rugby union session. There were about 16, 17 girls there. Some of them very new to the game, some of them quite experienced with 2 or 3 years under their belts. And I said, okay, go and write down your name and write down a sentence next to it that will be your big target for tonight. And it wasn't real. I mean, you couldn't categorize it because there were so many different things. So there were things like related directly with the game. So they were talking about support, which is a principle of the game in rugby union. They were talking about things like showing more love and affection. That was actually a sentence somebody wrote down. One of the girls wrote down something like keeping calm and not losing the plot. And obviously that was a very experienced player who was actually in an England pathway, and it won't be many years until we see her playing in the big leagues. And again, she was playing with girls that have been playing for a couple of months. So she was again developing loads of core values, such as your core value of the month, which is empathy.
Good job.
Again,
you've mentioned it more times than I have now.
Well, there you go. There you go.
Good. I like
it wasn't a secret mission. It wasn't a secret mission.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, and every time they felt they were achieving that or contributing towards that, or every time somebody noticed that in them, they would run to the board and do like a little smiley face next to it.
Yeah.
And it was all about, can we get 100 smiley faces by the end of the session? And we got way more. We got loads more. But again, it was really interesting to pick those 17 sentences apart and trying to get them in category. It would have been impossible.
Yeah. So we're going to take this and use this as our final question before I let you wrap up, Juan. And it's from Deborah again. Deborah, thanks for your question again. She says, in coaching, she's still there. Yeah, she is retired. We did talk about that. In coaching an under 8 girls recreational team, I noticed as a coach, you can have the best intention and plan for practice. However, many times I have to change things because of the personalities of the girls or the mood they are in. Giving them a voice is very important. What is your advice?
I would say keep them
So
involved.
I think, yeah, keeping them involved. So asking them more, right? Hey, is that what you're saying? Yeah. And I was going to just build off that. I think it's great that she's flexible and adapting based on the mood, which shows that she's getting to know them, but also saying, maybe saying we're going to do these 2 activities. The 3rd activity is for you to choose. So that maybe that keeps their engagement longer and stuff like that. And again, I'm just throwing something out there. One, she's asking for your advice because she gets me on a daily basis, either by text, email, or phone. So she's looking for a fresh voice as opposed to my dull tone.
I would try a few intentional things. So I would try getting there slightly earlier, leaving your bag of footballs out there, and a few cones and stuff, and see what the girls come up with. So intentionally be like 10-15 minutes late, or sort of stay behind chatting with parents and stuff, and see what the girls come up. And you might sort of lay it out the week before and go, look, girls, there's going to be some balls there. I've got to have some conversations with your parents around X. You're allowed to, you can have those balls, you can play with those balls. You're not allowed to go outside this area for safety purpose. And you guys can start playing. I think a very good challenge for you as a coach would be going out there and sort of piggybacking on their game, and see what they've come up with. It'd be really interesting to see. Somebody was telling me the other day around canoeing, yeah. So artificial canoeing, it wasn't a natural river. So every time they turned the water tap on, I think it was about over £1,000 that they had to pay. That was the bill. Yeah, for an hour it was over £1,000. So what they got to do in that practice was costing them a lot of money. So obviously, if the athlete wasn't involved, or how the athlete was going to try to get better in that hour, it was going to be a waste of time. It was going to be a massive waste of money. So again, going back to Deborah's environment, I think it's great. It's great that you're keeping some flexibility around what they're trying to do. It would be unrealistic for you to go through a whole season just saying what this girl's going to do Saturday out, Saturday out. Keep it fresh as much as you can. I would try to get to what are the current interests. Is it certain video game? Is it Fortnite? Is it Call of Duty? Is it what's the singing and dancing called? Can't think of a name now, but anyway, what is their interest? What sorts of video games are they playing? What sorts of movies are they watching?
Making relevant, yeah.
Yeah, exactly, making relevant. Are they a big fan of Frozen, which I think most girls that age would be? Are they into or whatever it is? And then perhaps try to create, I don't know, if it's some sort of league within your training sessions where you have 15 minutes or a certain game that is related to their interest. I don't know. Look for some ways of engaging them, hooking them up early, and going, well, today you're not in your best mood, or 2 or 3 of your big characters in there, they're not in the best mood. Well, but it's league time, so they're going to get really excited about the league. So from now on, there's going to be in pairs. You're going to be leading our. I don't know, the first 10 minutes of warm up we're going to do. 2 of you are going to lead it. Okay, I'm going to have some sort of rota where people are going to lead it. So for some girls, it will create some anxiety around being exposed in front of the groups. Some girls will be loving it. And again, for both of them, there'll be loads of learning in that in that instance of coaching and learning and feedback. So yeah, keep them involved, keep it flexible. There'll be lots of parents wondering what's going on here, why these 2 girls doing all the talking and you're standing there on the side. Anyway, that's a different conversation.
Yeah, it is. I think what Debbie's favorite, the parents have to do, obviously the history as a PE teacher and everything. She does a good job. So, but anyway, Juan, I want to be specific of your time. I want to thank you for your time. Tell us a little bit about what you've got going on, what you're working on. You know, a while back, but we actually met in person in January. We came to the Future of Coaching conference with Richard Cheatham, Neil Sullivan, and MBE. Sorry, I forgot the MBE. But tell us a little bit about what you got going on apart from your masters and some of the stuff, and how people coach you or follow your work, follow you on Twitter, for example.
I'm going to be. It was quite crackly there, but I think you got it. I think I got the question about what's coming my way. I've got a couple of weeks in South America. I was meant to have a couple of weeks in Asia following that. All of those things, or most of those things, are on standby at the moment. I've got a number of mentees that I'm working with in different sports as well, through different programs. Again, in different sports, some of them in educations, not just in sports. So obviously, touching base with them, and it's all safe to sort of do this type of thing. So I think I'm going to be spending a lot of time staring at my face on cameras and things. I've got a conference coming up here in England, in the north of England, in York, at a school called Pocklington School on the 24th of April. So everybody obviously more than welcome to come on to that. We are going to have Nick Levett, we're going to have Richard Cheatham, and we're going to have Sarah Green. Cheat, we spoke about him, Winchester University, Dr. Learning, lots of experience talking about learning and learning about learning. Nick is the current head of coaching at UK Coaching, which is the governing body for everything to do with coaching awards in this country. Sarah is the performance coach developer at England Netball. So all three of them talking everything to do with how coaching is going to look in the future, hence the Future Coaching name. So that's 24th of August at Pocklington School in York. And then there's a number of
24th of April.
April, yeah, sorry.
April.
April, yeah, that's right. Sorry.
August.
Yeah, there's a number of projects after that. Hopefully, I'm in America in June. Everything going well, and the world not exploding or us becoming zombies. So hopefully, I'm in June in America. I've got another Asia trip in November. I'm meant to be in Italy again early June. You're making me look at my calendar now. Back to South America in August. So lots of things going on there. There is a big project on the work pipes at the moment with Stuart Armstrong from the Talent Equation, and it's going to be quite different, and I think it's going to be very interesting. I'm not going to big it up anymore, but there should be some stuff coming out at the end of this month. So obviously you'll be one of the first to know about that, and so you can spray around your network and stuff. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so lots of things coming my way.
You got, obviously you're busy, slam calendar, some things on hold, some things accelerating, but Jose Alonso Saavedra, he just said, I really want to go and take a course with Juan. How can I know dates, prices, and places? So
tell him to reach out to me, Jose. My Twitter handle is @Sud Coaching, so SUD Coaching. It's the same username around Facebook and Instagram. And if you want to add me on WhatsApp, is +44, which is Britain, England, and then it's 07545 004721. So send me a message in any of them. I'll let you know some details around those bits. And perhaps we can meet when I'm in Colorado in June.
Yeah, I don't know where Jose is based, but I'm just trying to put your number in the notes, but it made me call you instead.
Don't worry, mate.
But
Don't worry, mate. Got your
we'll
money.
get that out. Yeah, so yeah, Jose, hopefully you've got that stuff too. So he's in St. Louis, Missouri, and he says he looks forward to catching up.
Nice
hopefully
one. Nice one. Just
in
drop me a
Colorado
message.
when you're here.
Great to chat.
Yeah, and Jose, you should have my contact info, and I can get you connected with one as well. Brilliant. So, Juan, an hour has flown by. We're 65 minutes in, 66, as they usually do. I can't thank you enough for coming on. I hope Lula and Kata are well. Please send my regards, and my hope is that we connect again soon. And I look forward to hearing at the end of this month, which is your birthday, I believe, and my birthday, the same day.
Correct.
So I look forward to hearing what's coming down the pike and how I can get involved with you and Stuart and the rest of the group and move this needle a little more on what coaching should look like, what learning looks like, and how we can make it better. So
absolutely, mate. Absolute pleasure as always. Thank you so much for having me again.
Yeah. Thanks, Juan. Thanks, everybody. Our next call is pretty soon with Alex Twitchin, who's a coach developer. So Juan, I know you'll put that out to your network, and you're welcome to join us. And you always ask very thought-provoking questions. Come and join us with Twitch, who developed that online coach developers course as well as part of the Open University. But this is Juan Gonzalez Mendia from Sud America Coaching. Follow him. If you don't, you should. And let's keep going. Keep making a difference, everybody. Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.